If you all want to let me know when you're ready, then we'll get started. Angie, we got you right over here. You good? Ready? Kenneth? Great. Good afternoon. My name's Andy Bashir, and I am honored to serve as Kentucky's 50th Attorney General. Serving as Attorney General is the honor of my lifetime. It's an honor because every day when I go to work, I don't go to do a job, I go to pursue a mission. Our mission in the Attorney General's office is pretty simple. We want every Kentucky family to be able to live in a safe neighborhood and have a real path to prosperity. We try to achieve that mission by focusing on 4 challenges that impact our families every day. Those challenges are the prevention and prosecution of child abuse, better protecting our seniors against scams and abuse, seeking justice for victims of rape and sexual assault, and finding workable solutions to this drug epidemic that plagues this and every other community. But part of this mission, part of making sure there is a real path to prosperity for each Kentuckian, has brought us here today. For many in Eastern Kentucky, finding any path to prosperity has been difficult. Time and time again, the good people of this region have been hit by what seemed to be insurmountable challenge after insurmountable challenge. The decline in coal production, the opioid epidemic, higher and higher poverty rates, and slow economic recovery coming out of the recession have made hard-working folks tighten up their already limited finances. It has made getting by go from difficult to almost impossible. Families, businesses, local government, and schools are hurting in Eastern Kentucky. The people of Eastern Kentucky do not deserve any more punches in the gut. Instead, they deserve to have somebody that is fighting for them and their interests. So today, I'm here with local legislators, officials, school administrators, and advocates to oppose yet another punch in the gut, yet another unnecessary toll on the wallets of Eastern Kentucky families. My office, through our Office of Rate Intervention, will be asking the Public Service Commission to fully reject AEP Kentucky Power's $60 million rate increase request. That request would impact roughly 168,000 Kentuckians in a 20-county service area. I want to be clear. Our office position is it shouldn't be less, it should be zero. Zero. With this $64.5 million rate increase, the proposal has nearly $40 million being borne by residential customers. Those are our families. It would cause the monthly consumer charge to increase per customer from $11 to $17, and just going back to 2015, that was only $8. If that increase were to be granted by the PSC, it would mean Kentucky families in this service area would witness a 112.5% increase in their utility bills in just a short period. And of the affected customers, of the folks that would be subject to this rate increase, 35,000 live at or below the poverty line. 18 of the 20 counties impacted have a poverty rate of over 20%. Yet the proposed rate increase would lead to those at or below the poverty line in this region paying $10 million more than they are right now. That's 35,000 people that already struggle to buy groceries and pay for medicine. They simply cannot afford an increase in their power bills. And many of those families and many others have already had to make such tough decisions. In the first 6 months of 2017, disconnects, people who can no longer afford their power because of past rate increases, is already higher than it was in 2016. With ever-increasing rates and stagnant LIHEAP funding, it's hardly surprising Kentuckians are hurting, and ultimately, they're having no choice. Their lights are being turned off. It is unconscionable to put people in this position when there are other viable options. AEP could forego this entire increase simply by implementing stronger internal policies and decreasing the percentage of return to their shareholders. It's simple. If there's a reasonable way to cover costs without placing them on the backs of Eastern Kentucky families that have been through so much, that is the path that this company has to take. We're not asking Kentucky Power for great sacrifices. In fact, since 2016, they have seen their revenue increase 45%, while the unemployment rate in Eastern Kentucky continues to grow every month. And while their customers have decreased by approximately 7,000 in this region, during the past 5 years, AEP profits have been in excess of $1.3 billion. There is plenty of return to shareholder that can be cut to ultimately allow Eastern Kentucky families to just keep their lights on. And sadly, if this increase is granted, Kentucky Power would have the highest base rates in this entire state. Eastern Kentucky would be paying the most. Based on a 1,000 kilowatt hour usage per month, a Kentucky Power customer would pay $27 more than an LG&E customer in Louisville, $33 more than a KU customer in Lexington, and $47 more than a Duke customer in Northern Kentucky. We can't expect those that have the least to pay the most. My office, along with everyone here today, is asking the PSC to deny this rate increase request in its entirety. And I'm also asking the PSC and ultimately AEP to hold a hearing in all 20 counties that are impacted. If you are a family whose power bill is going to go up even more, and I have met with families who are paying $700 a month, AEP and the PSC should have to come to your community and look you in the face and give you an answer to how that's possible and how you are going to get by. We have to give our families a real path forward, a real path to prosperity right here in Eastern Kentucky. I'm going to continue to fight for the families in Eastern Kentucky. And so today we're here doing something nearly unprecedented. We are opposing this requested increase in its entirety and will be arguing in front of the PSC that they should dismiss it in full. This region has already borne so much pain. Our families can't afford any more. Those are my reasons, and I'd now like to ask some others who are here with me today to share their views. First, we have the representative from Pike and Letcher County, Angie Hatton.
First, I just want to welcome to Pikeville our Attorney General, Andy Bashir. Thank you so much for taking the time to come down here to be with us today, to look at the people in this area and tell us that you're stepping in and that you're going to be on our side. Thank you for intervening in this situation that's become impossible for us to deal with down here. We need your help, and we certainly appreciate you coming down here today to be with us and to be such a powerful ally in our fight for affordable electric rates. As others are going to tell you that are coming up here today, this is something that affects us all. Families are already struggling. We have people already who may be on a fixed income of $1,100 a month with a $500 power bill. Well, we've all heard those sad stories, everyone who lives up here anyway has, about how people are having to make tough decisions about whether to keep their electricity on or whether to pay for their much-needed medicine or healthy food for their families. And I just think that it's ironic that in this region that for 2 centuries has powered our nation that now we are having trouble keeping our lights on. Now, I realize that AEP's Kentucky Power Division is adjusting to a loss of residential and business customers. I know that. I know that the Kentucky Power Division has much fewer customers spread over the same area, and that's going to cost them more to provide power to us. I do understand that. But they're going to have to learn to tighten their belt elsewhere. They simply can't ask ordinary citizens here in my region to pay any more. We can't do it. It's not possible. It's not something that we can manage. We deserve better. And having Attorney General step in and help us is exactly the kind of help that we need to call attention to this. So I want to take the opportunity to publicly thank him for that, for intervening on our behalf. He is the people's attorney in this state, and we so appreciate him. I also want to thank regular people in our community. They have organized themselves, and they have been very vocal. They have stood up in a way that makes me so proud of Eastern Kentucky. We stick up for one another. When bad things happen, we stand together. We help each other through floods and house fires and deaths in families, and we're going to help each other through this and support one another. We find ways to help our neighbors pay their power bills, and we've stood up for each other in this situation. You're going to hear from some of those ordinary citizens that are here to demand better. And also our school systems and our healthcare facilities and many of the small businesses that are trying to struggle to pay these power bills in light of all the other efforts or hardships that they're facing right now. I want to thank all of them for being vocal about it and not just standing by and letting it happen to us. So just this morning, the Public Service Commission announced they were going to have 3 hearings, probably in light of what they knew we were going to be talking about today. But they didn't choose to have one in Pikeville, where we have 33,000 customers. That's 33,000 people who are struggling right now with their power bills. 33,000 people who deserve better and need to have their voices heard at a Public Service Commission public hearing. How many of these 33,000 people may end up losing their homes because they can't pay their power bill? There are large numbers of households here who are below the poverty line. You heard the general talk about all the different ways that Eastern Kentucky is suffering right now. People are living paycheck to paycheck. And it's not like AEP is in the same situation. Stock price has tripled since 2009, and it's risen by 20% just in this last year, while we've seen our rates skyrocket. Apparently that's still not enough. Apparently they still need another $65 million, which is about what they're asking for in this new rate increase from us. So I don't know how many of y'all watch Game of Thrones, but there's a saying in Game of Thrones that winter is coming. Well, in Eastern Kentucky, winter is coming. And with colder weather coming, we know what that means. That means higher heating bills. So as our heating bills are about to go higher, it's time that we do turn up the heat, and we turn up the heat on American Electric Power. We need to keep this pressure on them. We need to make them understand what we're going through down here. So, on behalf of this entire region, I want to thank the Attorney General again for stepping up for us and for coming down here today. And also, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you one of those ordinary people I was talking about.
Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. That's right. I want to introduce to you Alice Kraft. Come on up, Alice. Alice is a citizen of Letcher County. If you look at Alice's Facebook page, you're not going to see anything about politics or issues. You're not going to see fancy places that she's attending. What you're going to see is pictures of her grandbabies. Alice is one of us. I'm proud to call her my friend, and I'm very, very proud of her for standing up the way she has, for coming to the public meetings and talking, for refusing to back down and give up. So you'd much rather hear from Alice, I promise you. This is Alice Kraft.
Thank you. I also would like to thank Mr. Bashir's Attorney General for standing up and being here with us. It means everything in the world for him to be here, to know that somebody cares, somebody's going to be on our side.
We are.
And I thank you all for this opportunity to be here today. And you know, I made some notes here and things, but it come to my mind this morning. I said, you know, we got a little newspaper. It's called Community Press and Mountain Eagle. Well, in January of this year, I wrote an article to the editor, the letter to the editor, and was complaining and asked him for help. Wanted to know, is there anybody out there hear us? Does anybody care? And I've wrote letters and I've phone calls and everything, about the situations in where I live and people that are suffering, in eastern Kentucky due to these power bills. And so I thank God for you to be here to step up. I really do.
Thank you.
And all I can say is shame, shame on AEP for what they're trying to do to eastern Kentucky. Let me read this to you. You know, times are already hard because of the coal jobs that's been lost. And it breaks my heart to see families suffering. And they are just like you and me, men and women working. They wanting to take care of their families, wanting to raise their children and have a home. That's all that eastern Kentucky wanted to do. And I think God had gave us that coal for eastern Kentucky, because we don't have factories. We don't have places and stuff like off in the cities. We don't. God gave us that coal for our use. That's what I think. But it was all taken away from eastern Kentucky, the people. And I tell you, eastern Kentucky people are proud people. We don't want no handouts either. We don't. We want to be able to take care of ourselves. But this all started when AEP retired their coal power plants. I'm thinking this is when it all started. And that's when their fees and their increases started. And it's just gotten way out of control, way out. It's nothing to hear, now this is the truth, of an $800 to $1,000 electric bill for a household. How in God's green earth do you think people can afford that? That we can't. And it's just not affecting the low-income families, and it's not just it's affecting everybody. This is a trickle-down effect. It really is, because it's affecting the businessmen, it's affecting the business people. They've got to pass on this increase to us. That's where it's going to lie. Well, we can't take anymore. We've had all we can take, and we do need help. Let me tell you about a few of the families that I've come in contact with. This lady is my neighbor. And now you think that people don't make hard decisions in life. You just come over where I live, because they do. This lady, she's on a fixed income. And she come to me and she said, Alice, she said, I don't know what to do. She said, I've got to make a decision whether to pay my electric bill or pay my rent. Then she come back and she said, well, she said, I've made that decision. She said, I've got to pay my rent, because at least we would have shelter for my children. Right. Now, you just think about that. Then the next couple, they are an older couple, but there's another couple that I know that's not as old. And you know what they do? They block off all their house for the winter. They stay in this one room. They pull their mattress out and sleep on the floor, trying to survive, trying to keep warm. And then there's my grandson. Well, and they're just waiting on spring to come around. Then there's my grandson. Well, like I said, I've been working on this for a while. Well, he come in and he said, Nana, he said, let me tell you what happened at school today. And this was Christmas break, because this come out in January. And he said, we was all gathering around at Christmas and said we was telling one another what they got for Christmas. And said it come this one boy's turn. And they said, what'd you get? He said, well, I got my power turned back on. Wow. I got my power turned back on. Now, these are real stories, people. These are people suffering, trying to decide, to make decisions, hard decisions for their families and to take care of them. And you know, it's not just for low-income people or you think maybe it's just for low-income people. It's not. My son and my daughter-in-law, Angie knows Amy, good friends with her, raised up with her. Well, they got good paying jobs. They work in a hospital. But when it comes time that it takes a whole payday to pay an electric bill, what's left? What's left? And they've got 2 boys in school. There ain't much left, I'll tell you that, for to buy maybe groceries and gas. AEP is asking for another raise. I said, how on the earth do you expect the citizens to pay for another increase when we can't even afford this one that they've got now? We can't. We need help, not to let AEP have their rate increase. We can't afford it. Instead of an increase, we need a decrease. And if you take anything away from this meeting today, I pray that God will put it in your heart to remember the stories and the lives of Eastern Kentucky people. And I thank you all so much.
I think we should have let Alice go first. Alice and her friends, her stories are the exact reason that we have to do what we do. In 2017, there shouldn't be a child in a family that sleeps on the floor of their home because of their electricity bill. And for a child at Christmas, all that child to want and be thankful for is their power coming back on ought to be a crime in the United States in this day and time. Surely as Christian people, as people of faith, as people of morals, that we can all agree that that is not an acceptable situation. Next, we have our Knott County Judge, Zach Weinberg, to tell us how this is going to hit his county, which also does not have a hearing scheduled for it. Zach?
Thank you, General. And as he said, my name is Zach Weinberg, and I'm the county judge in Knott County. And I'm glad that they asked me to speak today. And but I stand here today in opposition to Kentucky Power's excessive proposed rate increase. Kentucky Power is attempting to bolster its bottom line on the backs of consumers who already are reeling from the effects of the collapse of our region's coal economy. Kentucky Power says that the increased rates are made necessary by the decrease in residential and commercial customers in the 21 Eastern Kentucky counties it serves due to the struggling economy. Instead of accepting a lesser return during these hard times, it is seeking to pass its cost on to those who can afford it least, the men and the women and children of Eastern Kentucky. The latest inflation rate for the United States as published by the United States government is 1%. through the 12 months ending May 2016, and they're asking for a 16% increase. The unemployment rate in Knott County in July, according to state figures, was 10.5%. In McGoffin County was 18%. Leslie County, 12.2%. And Letcher County, 11.4%. Our people, in spite of these statistics, Kentucky Power is seeking the 16% increase. Our people cannot stand such an increase. There's, as Ms. Kraft spoke, there's many of these same stories that are in Knott County, and I hear them on a daily basis, and I know Judge Ben Hale hears them, and Judge Deskins hears them in Floyd and Pike as well. And so it's the I just think that a 16% raise will mean for these same people, it just will not, they cannot afford it. The human costs of this proposed rate increase demand asking that it be scaled back. And I really commend everybody that came to speak on it, but really Attorney General for putting this together and letting us come together and talk about this, and his rate intervention team for taking the lead in protecting Eastern Kentucky consumers. And I would ask that the PSC that they do a rate hearing in Knott County so that the folks in Knott County can voice their concerns as we go forward. And so thank you all.
And as Judge Weinberg mentioned, we are joined by two other county judges here, Judge Deskins from right here in Pike County and Judge Hale from Floyd County next door. Their presence should tell you something, that this is just as devastating in every single county that it impacts. Next, from Community Action Network, we have Caitlin Ferris. Caitlin?
Good afternoon. I am Caitlin Ferris, the representative for Community Action Kentucky. CAK is the nonprofit association representing the 23 community action agencies across Kentuckiana. Our community action agencies operate in every county of this state. Community action agencies are dedicated to helping Kentuckians learn new skills, find jobs, get to work, take better care of themselves, raise their children, and care for their grandparents. It is our mission to stand up for the most vulnerable people in our communities. If you live on a low income, fixed income, or just paycheck to paycheck, every penny counts. If the cost of one thing goes up, that means you have to spend less, whether it be on food, medicine, rent, books, or gasoline. Something has to get cut at the end of the day. What do I mean by low income? Federal guidelines define poverty as a two-person household making $16,240 per year, or in 1 month, they make $1,000, $353. According to Kentucky Power, the average electric bill for a household in this region is $148 per month. That's about 11% of their entire household income. For a family that is already struggling to make ends meet, a utility increase of almost 16% means cutting something essential. Altogether, there are approximately 35,700 people living in this region who are considered, by definition, of being in poverty. Of the 20 counties in this region, 18 have poverty rates higher than 20%. That means 1 out of every 5 person is in poverty. 7 counties have poverty rates higher than 30%, and 2 counties are reaching 40% of poverty. What that means is 1 in 3 people in those counties are considered in poverty. That's why I'm here today, to speak up for the families who are going to have to make yet another tough decision. I want to make sure their voices are heard and that their families, children, and the most vulnerable people in our communities are given the consideration they deserve.
Alice mentioned not only our seniors that are so susceptible to the harms that can come with a rate increase, where LIHEAP runs out almost right away, and our federal government tried to cut LIHEAP as well. We fought that, and we've won thus far. But also our children. And our children are not just impacted at their home, they're impacted in their school system. We are joined by 2 superintendents today to talk about the impacts to those school systems. First, we have Tony Sargent from the Letcher County Public Schools.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to start by thanking the Attorney General for allowing me to come speak today. And I'd also like to thank Representative Angie Hatton for contacting me and for taking into consideration what impact this will have on Letcher County schools. The proposed rate and the magnitude of the rate by AEP would have a dramatic effect on Letcher County schools and for all the schools in eastern Kentucky for that matter. And to be honest with you, it couldn't have come at a worse time for us. And I'm going to speak in detail about a lot of things in Letcher County, but this includes all the counties in eastern Kentucky. This past year, property values in Letcher County dropped $215 million as a result of the lowering of the assessment for unmined coal. $215 million. Now, the Letcher County Board of Education would have had to increase property taxes on our citizens 48% for us to get the same amount of revenue we got last year at a compensating rate. Of course they didn't do that. But as a result of not doing that, I lost $800,000 to operate my school system this year and every year after. $800,000. Now, understandably, our board didn't increase those tax rates. You know, our economy's already devastated in Letcher County. Everyone's lost their job. The people there can't afford the tax rates they're paying now. So for our board to increase tax rates 48% is not going to happen. You know, a property owner in Letcher County that had a $100,000 piece of property would have to pay $302 a year just for school tax extra. It's 1 year. And, you know, to me, this is an historic event. I've been in education 30 years. I've never seen anything like this happen before. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I've never seen property values drop like this. Did anybody ever expect coal to just go away? And no one expected that the formula for funding schools, this would ever happen, but it did. And, you know, Governor Bevin has also asked Commissioner Pruitt to cut $69 million from education. Now, the commissioners proposed a third of that, but that rate cut would still cost Letcher County $76,000 a year. And like I said, it is a third of what the governor asked, so I guess theoretically that number could triple. You know, those cuts would come from instructional resources for our kids, professional development for training for our teachers, and our FRISC program, which is our Family Youth Service. And so, you know, those are devastating cuts. Those areas would hurt really bad. And there's also another proposal, and I got this via email from the Office of the State Budget Director. It said that they were proposing an increase in the amount that school districts pay for the retirement of our classified workers. That amount would cost Letcher County $439,000 a year, on top of all the $800,000, the $76,000 that I've already mentioned. You know, in Letcher County and Letcher County schools have been hit tremendously hard with this unmined mineral crisis, but we're not alone. All the counties have been hit hard. Pike, Knott, you know, Floyd, all of them. But, you know, one example, Knott County School District, Knott County School Board would have had to have increased taxes on their citizens 83% to get the same revenue they got last year. And of course they didn't do that. But guess what happened? They lost $1 million of revenue to run their school system. I'm not sure how they're going to do that. Okay, and that's just two examples, Letcher County and Knott. I could go on all day about the other counties and the other examples, but I think you understand the crisis that we're facing at this point. You know, AEP is proposing a 16% rate increase. In Letcher County, we spent $953,677 last year on electricity. If you increase our rate 16%, that's going to cost us $152,588 additional dollars every year. Now, again, that's an annual cost every year. You know, with all the cuts that I mentioned previously, we can't take that hit. We can't afford it. You know, superintendents always talk about cuts and the number of teachers we'd have to lay off to cut that amount of money. You know, an average or starting teacher in Letcher County makes about $37,000, so that would be 4 to 5 teachers we'd have to cut to make up for that increase in our power rates. And just like to end with this, you know, for every dollar that we spend on electricity, that's a dollar we don't spend on educating our kids. Our situation is quickly becoming unmanageable. If all these cuts take place, and the majority of them already have, I'd be asked to start school next year with $1.5 million less revenue than I did last year. I'm not sure how I can do that. So I'm asking for your all's help. We need your help. All of Eastern Kentucky needs you. As I said before, we can't take another hit like this. And on behalf of the students of Letcher County and our school system, I thank you all for listening to me, and I thank you for your time. Let's do your folder.
I want to thank Tony for talking about what happens both inside and outside the classroom, because when you look at those Friskies and what they do, you know, when a child is coming to school in the winter with no coat and in short sleeves and is suffering, guess who finds that coat? Those family resource centers. And cuts to those are devastating to the individual children that ultimately are counting on us. Next, we have Reed Atkins from right here in the Pike County Public Schools. Reed?
I too would like to thank our Attorney General for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of our students, our children. I'm glad I didn't have to speak after Alice. I think that she said everything that really needed to be said. She told true stories about not only our people but also our children. To echo a few things that Tony said, the Pike County school system lost approximately $2.4 million in unmined mineral. And the increase for the benefits for our employees would cost us approximately $1.4 million. That's $3.8 million right there. When you look at the power bills for Pike County, it's approximately $3.1 million per year at this point. An increase that the increase that AEP is proposing would increase it up to approximately $3.6 million, which would be a $500,000 increase. And as Tony said, when we take dollars out of our programs, put them toward power, our students suffer. Our students suffer in things like teacher loss, as Tony said, program loss. And those are things that we just cannot absorb at this point. Over the last 4 years in Pike County, our free and reduced lunch rates have moved from 61% to 74%. I think that's a very powerful statement. It kind of tells you what's going on in Eastern Kentucky. Our students are suffering. Our people are suffering. We cannot absorb another rate increase from AEP. Finally, I would like to say our power bills through our grants with our homeless program, we pay several power bills for our students every month. And the request for that at this time is at an all-time high in Pike County. I think that's very powerful, and it tells you what's going on as far as our students in Eastern Kentucky are concerned. Again, I would like to thank our Attorney General for the opportunity to speak, and I'd also like to thank everyone that's here today supporting Eastern Kentucky and Pike County.
Thanks. You know that our superintendents are committed to our children when they're willing to step out in something that you wouldn't normally see them at, but they have reached that breaking point as well, and I appreciate both of you all for advocating for our kids. Next, we've got Mike Howell from the Big Sandy Area Community Action Program. He is the Executive Director. Mike?
I appreciate the opportunity to get to speak with you all today. You heard Caitlin talking about community action in Kentucky, that there are 23 community action agencies in the state. And we all are sister agencies, and we all basically got started as part of the war on poverty, some of us over 50 years ago. My agency's been in existence for 52 years now. And the staff and I represent the low-income people of Pike, Floyd, Martin, Magoffin, and Johnson counties. And as you heard earlier, the statistics on poverty, in our 5-county area, nearly 30% of our population is now living within the federal poverty guidelines. This includes 22,000 elderly people and close to 9,000 children under the age of 5. We are facing a stagnant economy in this region where the job market offers little promise right now. Magoffin County, for example, has had the highest unemployment rate of Kentucky 4 out of the last 5 years. A large number of our families survive on fixed income, many receiving Social Security and SSI. Nearly 1/3 of our residents are housing burdened, and meaning that they pay 30% or more of their income just on housing, just to keep a roof over their head. With fewer job opportunities that pay a living wage, a higher cost of living, and the outrageous rent prices and the outrageous utility bills that we're already paying, our people are almost at the breaking point. We in Eastern Kentucky are doing everything possible to increase our education levels, to improve our health, to establish a strong workforce, and to attract new businesses to the region. But we can't move forward if we're continually being cut off at the knees. Every year, my agency conducts a community needs assessment survey of the people to find out what their needs are and how we can better serve them. This last survey was done back in the spring, and utility assistance was ranked as the #1 need for this area, followed by food, clothing, and employment. During the winter months, people who struggle to have adequate heat in their homes look to our agency. This past winter, here at Big Sandy, we distributed $2.2 million in federal low-income home energy assistance program funding, LIHEAP funding. We serve nearly 10,000 households in our service area. In Pike County alone, which has the highest number of AEP customers in the state, we field 3,900 requests for assistance, with almost $600,000 in federal LIHEAP funds going directly to AEP. Altogether, out of that $2.2 million, AEP received nearly $1 million of that, because there's that many customers, AEP customers, that needed our assistance. These are people who have lost their jobs and they can't find another job. These are our elderly people, our disabled people, our single mothers with small children who may not have heat in their homes if they didn't have our assistance. To ask these people to pay more when they already can't pay without assistance is just unthinkable. We're expecting no better than level funding for LIHEAP for this coming winter. In fact, we've got our fingers crossed and we're hoping that we get level funding. There could be a cut. But this means that a rate increase will severely reduce the number of households that we'll be able to assist, and with a lower amount of assistance per family. We fight every day on behalf of our low-income families, and we ask that you join us in this fight to oppose this rate hike. We know for sure that it will be an economic disaster for the people of our region, whether they're low income or whether they're working every day. It's still going to be a disaster for them. And again, I thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for those comments. Think about one thing he just said. For the families that he serves, they are currently more worried about their ability to pay their electric bill than they are to put food on the table. That shows you how bad this problem has gotten. Last but not least, we have Representative Kevin Stinnett, who represents Boyd County and the city of Ashland. Take us home. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me. I see one of my good friends out there, and I consider him family, Keith Hall, the county attorney here in Pike County, and When I say family, I come from Ashland, 100 district. And this is an important issue to us too. We are family. Appalachia, we are family. You mentioned we don't want a handout, but at times we need a hand up. And I think somebody mentioned, I think it might have been Representative Angie Hatton had mentioned something about people are living paycheck to paycheck. You know what? Now they're living from credit card to credit card to make their payments. For 9 years, and I get angry over this issue, Attorney General, and I really appreciate you bringing this forefront because of the 9 years that I've been serving in the Kentucky General Assembly. A lot of people don't realize that there is a constitutional provision that a local government has to have a franchise with the utility. And they get this franchise fee, and they come in, and whether it's Columbia Gas, whether it's AEP, they get this franchise fee with the city. But you know what they do? They take that franchise fee and they put it back on the ratepayer's bill. They're having to pay for that franchise fee. How many of us would like to have a business that you get the right of doing business free? And that's exactly what they're doing. They're taking individuals' right-of-ways that they're paying taxes on, and they're taking that fee and they're putting it back onto their rate. Now let me tell you something else. I've sat here for 9 years and I've listened to AEP lie after lie after lie. They said they were going to put the scrubbers on here at the Big Sandy plant. They led us to believe that they were going to put those scrubbers on the Big Sandy plant. They were going to save the coal industry. They lied. And then they come back and they try to blame it on us. Enough is enough. We can't afford any more hurt. And trust me, while the coal was being mined in this part of Kentucky, it goes down to the Big Sandy River and it's made into steel at AK Steel. And that plant's shut down. We have numerous of individuals that are unemployed in my area due to what's happened to coal. And it's time that they pay. It's time for them to not quit looking out for their shareholder, but looking out for the people that they serve. Thank you very much.
So we had a lot of speakers for you here today, but that is because we are united. We are united in support of the people of Eastern Kentucky, and we are united in opposition to this rate increase. The Attorney General's office will be opposing any rate increase whatsoever. We will argue in front of the PSC that if the people can't pay it, you cannot enforce it. You cannot grant it. That's the point we've hit here in Eastern Kentucky. So I want you to know that everybody that's here today is going to be fighting for you. We'll take any questions. Or we can do them individually. Yes? We have, they listed the cities today, but we have Hazard, Ashland, and Prestonsburg. Floyd, Perry, and Boyd. Those are the only hearings currently scheduled. And I know the PSC is busy. They are. There are unfortunately far too many rate increases that have been requested across the state. But this increase is so crippling that I believe it's important for the PSC to get out to every single community so that they can feel both the desperation, which is what we see, and the real impact. Because what we're going to be asking the PSC to do is pretty significant. And I think that the people of Kentucky ought to be heard. And as you know, in these counties, you might have to drive an hour and a half just to get to a PSC meeting to talk about your electric rate. You might have an $800 power bill, yet you're going to have to pay for gas to travel an hour and a half just to talk about how ludicrous it is for your power bill to go from $800 to $900. You know, people deserve better than that. And Kentucky Power and AEP should have the opportunity in each community to talk to the people there and explain how they think those people can afford that increase. I think they'll have a tough crowd. Anyone else? All right. Thank you all very much.